welcome to another week of reviews here at Fragments of Silicon. This week we have two to cover. First up is Jagged Alliance Rage. Right, so this is a strategy tactical survival game. That last part's actually kind of important, but beforehand, so the Jagged Alliance games. Right. So I'll be honest, I'll be upfront. This is actually the first Jagged Alliance game I've ever played. I'm like, granted, I've known about the Jagged Alliance series for a long time. Um, it's one of those. It's a name that has been notable, like outside of its niche. I just never played one until now. You know, I don't know. There's always those kind of games, I guess. But I do know it's a long-running strategy series. Like I believe turn-based. Point of order is I don't know how this game compares to previous Jagged Alliance titles. It's like the general reputation I'm aware of. Like the first two are really, really good. Especially the second one, generally considered to be the apex of the franchise. Back when the series was with Seartech, they of wizardry fame. I'm like, Jagged Alliance is also a franchise that has been passed around a lot. And its most recent hands have been Handy Games / THQ Nordic. I'm like, they're kind of the same thing now. Like, Handy Games is a part of THQ Nordic. It even says so in the title screen. Now, with all that being said, this game is not completely unfamiliar to me because the developer is one Cliffhanger Productions. And very long-term listeners of the show might find familiarity with that name because we've actually had them on the program. And I'm talking like a long time ago.
I wasn't even there yet.
No, we're talking year one. We're talking original cast era. Like, that's how, we're talking about, either, 2013 or 2014. Um, we're talking like about 4 or 5 years. But I definitely remember having Cliffhanger Productions on the program. This was even, this was before we did European interviews, so it was really late for them. And we were covering Shadowrun Online Boston Lockdown, if I'm remembering that title correctly. And I bring this up because, while the setting is vastly different, the actual like UI and gameplay on display here isn't too dissimilar from their previous title. So, it was, and that being said, what's on display here is pretty typical strategy, tactical interface stuff in terms of gameplay. Like, you move your characters, you plot out the spaces, the movements that they do. If you know how a strategy game works, it works like one of those. The baseline is fine. It's fine for the most part. It's like where this game really falters was with the how do I put this? With like placement, movement, it felt really sticky, very gluey. I had problems like actually selecting certain areas because it like switched to the next one really fast. I'm not exactly sure what was causing that, and it's one of those little things that wasn't a game killer, but it was also very aggravating because here's the thing. In a tactical strategy games like this, where you move, how much you move, all of that is very exacting.
Mm-hmm.
And there are times where you are going to want an exact space, because you have to take into consideration, reloading, shooting, other thing. It's like you got a certain number of actions per per turn. Like if you're not moving, you're probably going to get off about 2 good shots. And it's worth noting that an additional twist is accuracy, because you can target the leg, you can target the body, you can target the head. Trying to remember. I think this is a part of Boston Lockdown as well. It certainly felt familiar. Um, the more action points you put into a move, or you put into an attack, the more accuracy you would have. Up to
But
a
then
certain.
the less you can do.
No, well, yeah, the less you can do. Well, it's more up to a certain point. Like you can only put about like 3 or 4 additional points into an attack before it cycles back to original parameters.
Uh-huh.
Like I said, and in general, there are a lot of standard strategy elements here. Stealth is a big part of this. It's like you can sneak around and kill silently if you so wish. A lot harder to do. It's like I would do that up to a certain point, and then it just became too tedious. And especially, as your starting party is only 2 characters. Apparently, some of them are returning veterans of the Jagged Alliance franchise. This is just what I've seen in research. Anyway, the big thing that has changed from Boston Lockdown to Rage here is survival elements. Because you're in the jungle, you have to deal with things like infections, hydration. You have to drink water or else you get dehydrated, and that affects things. You can get shrapnel in your leg or your chest or whatever, and that'll affect your movements. You can bleed out to death if you don't get proper medical applications. Now, it's all stuff that sounds well and good on paper, but its execution is pretty middling. I found like some of this, some of the stuff was easy to ignore, like infection. It's like making sure you're at a, you can only fix that like at a rest spot or whatever. Like it wasn't that much of a hassle. And other things you have to take into account is, the cleanliness of like the water you're drinking or the bandages you're using, or else you get sick. You've got an immune system meter, and you play as 6 different 2 of 6 different mercenaries or 8. And they all have their different skills and setbacks. Like I picked the sniper and the medic. Pretty good combination. Let me see. The graphics. Okay, there's no other way to say this. This game is fucking ugly. Some of that's by design because you're looking at jungle settings. So you're going to get a lot of samey greens, browns, and earth tones. But I'm not gonna lie. Some of this game looks like it was rendered in the late '90s, badly. Yeah, I'm like, music, audio. Honestly, I muted that pretty quickly.
Hmm.
Now, I found this game to be better played in silence or playing other music or other things because, once again, it's a strategy game. A engagement can take a few hours. Um, it's like, especially, if you mess up, there are auto saves you can save wherever, you know, you're that just tacks on more time. There were encounters that took like 2 hours to pass, you know, which once again is pretty typical strategy stuff. Like, uh, let's see, pricing. Uh, clocks in at $20. Like, yeah, I'm like, if you're looking, just in terms of it is a strategy game, that's certainly justifiable. You there's a lot of content. It's going to keep you occupied. Um, all that stuff. I mean, would I recommend this particular strategy game? Not really. Um, I'm getting like this seems to be okay, but really that's about where the game lies at its best. At its least, it's kind of subpar. Um, One caveat with this review, we only got one code, so we could not check out any of the multiplayer. It is worth noting because it's got online co-op, it's got online, combative multiplayer, you know, so that's there, but I don't know how any of that works. This is what happens when they send you the one code, and nobody here is going to spend $20 on this. You know, I see it's got partial controller support because this game is also out on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Yeah, I have no idea how that worked because I'm not insane and I'm on a computer, so I used a keyboard and mouse.
Something when in Rome.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I get why you would use a controller on a console because that's the primary input, but this is a game, this is a genre that's kind of built for point and click. Like, I think this game is also coming to mobile devices. Not 100% sure, but it's definitely a game that would fit well on mobile, and yeah, that's about all I gotta say for Jagged Alliance Rage. 4.5 out of 10 on the arbitrary scale of arbitration. Like, I liked it well enough. I've put in like 11 hours, so I can't say I hated the game for the most part. Like I said, that the interface gaffes were really aggravating after a while. Spending a good 2 minutes at points or whatever. Didn't exactly time it, but it was a while before I got the exact space I wanted. And but it's not really doing anything particularly amazing. Although apparently, given how some of the other entries have fared, like under the strategy first era, being mediocre is apparently kind of a godsend. Once again, this is just by reputation. Maybe I will play more Jagged Alliance games in the future, but it's kind of outside of the purview of this particular review. Right. So, any statements from the crew here about Jagged Alliance Rage?
I really have very little, if anything, to go on. So,
like
Mhm.
I've
like
on.
I am, if anything, less familiar with the franchise than you are, and all I have is these small images. I mean, it looks okay, and I believe you that it's got a couple issues, but is not terrible. So,
Yeah, I only know that by reputation as well. I've never played any of the games, and it looks like I said, okay at best.
All right then. So that'll do it for Jagged Alliance. Rage. Be sure to tune in after the break for our review of Ugai Saba. I think that's how that's pronounced. It's been a while.
Uagi, I think. I don't know though.
Yeah, Uagi. Um, you might recall we did an interview about this a couple months ago, but that's the thing. It's been a couple months.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's been sitting on the queue because it was an early access title and it's out. So, anyway, more on that after the break.